And welcome back, everyone, to the Word Traction Podcast. This is Maine Deadhead. The last hour of the voting in the Maine primary is going on right now. And this is a big night for your friend and mine, Graham Plattner. I for one, haven't had the pleasure of meeting him, but except for the generational differences, I've known a bunch of men like him when they were boys, perhaps. But, disaffected youth, overindulgent parents, ridiculously expensive. I mean, there were kids that went to certain prep schools when I was a wee lad in the 80s that were over $50,000 a year then. Hotchkiss, where Plattner went briefly, um, and no shade for being in transition at a young age, and trying to figure it all out and finding some bumps in the road. But I think Hotchkiss then, when he was there, which would have been in the 2002-3 range, somewhere like that, was probably around $70,000 a year. And that's of course in the beautiful state of Connecticut. Plattner is from Maine. He spent some time away from there for military service, which we'll touch on in a minute, and to attend GW, George Washington in D.C., when he went back to the then Maryland National Guard to serve in the National Guard following his active duty service in Iraq. You know, the evolution of this story, of course, Democratic Party hopefuls and Democratic Party stalwarts, we want we want to win. We need to, in some way, get Donald Trump to move along. And the easiest way to reach that goal in an efficient manner and start to destroy the impunity under which Trump is operating is to take both the House and the Senate. Now, because of the shenanigans of your Supreme Court, both that doesn't really Louisiana v. Calais and the subsequent decision in Mississippi, uh, affecting voting in Mississippi, is not going to affect the Senate. But the Senate's a very specific thing, and all along, the idea of the Democratic Party taking control of the Senate was a long shot. And because of the way that the system is set up, uh, it's having a Democratic majority in the Senate going forward over the next decades will be a slog. It will take it will take exceptional candidates and a full repudiation of the entire MAGA movement, which should be coming if everybody goes to church and follows the lessons of their parents. But sometimes, as you know, that takes time. Now, Plattner, as you heard, the New York Times piece that was done, including a former staffer. It's bad on bad when you go from Reddit. The name of the episode, Deadhead, of course, is a tribute to Jerry Garcia and the, I think, 5 dead shows that I saw in the state of Maine over the years. But of course, Deadhead also refers to the head of death, which is the Totenkopf, which is the tattoo that Plattner only recently had covered up, and that is associated with the Nazi Party, if not German military extremists writ large. Now, I want to I want to give some grace because grace is required. for a young man then that saw the sorts of things in the types of combat he was doing. He was initially in the Marines in Iraq, in units that saw tremendous attrition, your friends dying every single day, terrible violence, IEDs, and people dying I mean, war is miserable. And the new version of that, when people are dying at the hands or at the under drone assault, doesn't make dying any easier. But when you're seeing your friends and the men that you fight and die for every day dying by IED or other brutal means, it certainly will have an effect on you. Plattner admitted as much when he came out of active military service that he said he was a little bit fucked up, and that would be almost expected after that sort of many other men and women have experienced that as well. How did he choose to deal with it? He was posting on Reddit, which was, in its Reddit in its infancy. When he ended active duty, it was Obama too, and he took to Reddit like a fish to water and started posting a bunch of silly shit. Some of it racist, misogynistic, some marginally anti-Semitic, some bad things. But again, for a young man, if you take, I'm not a demographer, but if I were to do a quick and dirty calculation, as I did earlier today, on what percent of men, just dealing with men selfishly, that's what he is. He is the inferior XY chromosome being, Plattner is. What percent of men over 30 have seen, while in active duty, have seen combat in that of that sort? I meant not certainly the combat that was faced by our men in Vietnam would count, but it's a different era. And I wanted to try to drill down on the experiences of people that are in the era of modern warfare and just get a sense of what sort of population, as a part of the overall male population in the United States over 30. So we're talking about 2, 3, maybe 4% of total male population over 30 at the time that he served saw the sort of combat duty, the very violent, you know, street to street, door to door fighting that he did. And that happened in largely in Iraq and in Afghanistan. So he had a brief visit to Afghanistan. He went in as a State Department subcontractor, maybe through the hiring machine that was Blackwater, but he wasn't necessarily associated with any of the ills of Blackwater that are the tales that are parts of novels and cautionary tales now. But as he would admit himself, and nothing that I am not in the position to excuse him, because he's not my child. He could be my son by our relative ages. And certainly his military experience is not something that I can say that I shared with him. But I want an equal part of grace and scrutiny because that's appropriate. I've heard some impassioned positions staked out on this platform and others. Thoughtful people that I follow on a regular basis and respect opinions of people like New York Times David French, who he himself, a JAG officer, saw some or was with units at least that saw some pretty nasty combat in Iraq, and um, and has a particular opinion about Mr. Plattner, which is not encouraging. And then you go up and down the chain of the commentators that you listen to, and the Totenkopf can hit me a little bit differently as I'm not a Jewish man, so that may have a specific um, may hit a Jewish man differently than it does a Catholic man, essentially an agnostic man. So that's a given. Everybody's entitled to experience something like that in their own way. There's no absolutes when it comes to a consideration like that. But what does it say about us as Democratic Party faithful that we're willing to sign on for what might be future disappointment if what if not all of the dirty stuff is out? And remember that I think he was polling among likely Democratic voters in Maine only about a couple of weeks ago. He was getting 70%, right? Because the only people he's facing is some guy, some dude, and the fact that the former Janet Mills, the former governor, had not taken herself off the ballot when she discontinued her campaign. So her name's so will there be it'll be interesting to see what the quote unquote protest vote tells us about the vibes among the electorate. And then we have some time until the midterms, right? So that's we have 5 months, right? So where do we come? Do we want to? I mean, there's an argument that if you'll excuse me, if you sell your soul, if you make yourself less, if you lower your standards in order just to get a candidate into the race that might tip the balance in the Senate, is that justified when you line that up against the risk of what Donald Trump has done and will do in the future? That is, again, that's something for every voter to decide for themselves. I would argue that there is no, there's no doubt about what Trump has done, and we can only assume that he will continue in a way that he's doing now, but also in his declining mental acuity, minutes away from his 80th birthday, and showing signs of diminishment at the to be polite and erratic behavior. Just uh, that interview on with Christy Welker on the weekend in Wisconsin. We saw a an irate and unbalanced Donald Trump when all he was asked to do was to tell the truth. But because the truth that he was being asked to discuss was not a convenient truth for him, it went against the narrative that he used to get elected. He became borderline violent in his behavior, not physically, but he was abusive. He assaulted a reporter verbally. He does it on a regular basis. And people, a lot of people, I was arguing with somebody else on the platform the other day about one of the nice ladies at CNN who he lit into. It's just, you might as well say every female reporter. This was Caitlin Collins. Well, why don't they just stand up and walk out of the room? I joke that she should ask for maybe an assignment, a 1 year assignment to Milan, covering fashion or something. I don't mean to diminish her commitment to her craft, but she deserves to be paid $1 million a week and to have a villa on the Mediterranean, right? She can probably watch the U.S. warships go by for some altercation or another. But here we're back to Graham, right? So I am not a Maine voter. I can almost throw a baseball to the Maine border, not quite, but it's pretty damn close. And I asked myself, if I were in Maine, would I vote for Plattner? You know, if I were, there are all sorts of colorful metaphors and others for the if I were. I'm clear eyed. Anybody that walks around saying you have TDS now after everything that those that want to know should know, they may be fooling themselves. They may be telling themselves a particular tale or supporting a narrative that they're embarrassed that they were sold a bill of goods that they bought, and now they're embarrassed for having to hold that bill of goods until the end of the term. And I understand that. I would certainly be terribly embarrassed if I disgraced my family by voting for somebody like Donald Trump. You can understand that on a human level, but it's not excusing the behavior. Right? So now Plattner, the least compelling argument and we hear it all the time. Yeah, but, yeah, but what about? Talk about Donald. Yeah, but Hunter Biden, he committed war crimes in Ukraine and videotaped them and shared them with the Vatican and what all the things that they make up about Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden did some bad things, including he had possession of a firearm by someone who was just out of a drug treatment program, something to that effect. That's a crime. It's on the books. It isn't, a first year law student can tell you what that's all about. Did Graham Plattner perhaps was he uh, less than respectful towards partners, that women that he was in relationships with, as some have testified and some have been found to be telling untruths about that for political reasons. So it's a mix of, it's truth and consequences in the age of Trump. One thing that I know for certain is that Graham Plattner has never been credibly accused of having sexual relations with underage children. Children are all underage, you'll excuse me, with minors. I know that he was never on Epstein Island, nor did he ever engage in a long-term friendship with a man responsible for exploiting hundreds of minors for profit over a period of decades. False equivalence? No. For tonight, don't care. We have to deal with the what is, and unless something shocking happens between now and the next 30 minutes, then Mr. Plattner is going to be the one that's representing the Democratic Party in the Maine senator race against Susan Collins. Susan Collins isn't the most dangerous human being on earth. She's aged out and she's gone back on her word a number of times, so many times that I'm surprised that she's made it this long. Because Maine voters can be tough. And it's, as news reports repeat ad nauseum, it's a blue state. So I think that if it were me laying odds, I would guess that uh, Plattner is favored to win against Collins. Full stop. There will be a lot of money dumped on the race. Plattner has proven that he can fundraise, and the Republican Party will be shoveling money at Susan Collins. So we're in for it won't be as expensive, for instance, as the Texas race. That will be out of control because it's Texas and they do everything big in Texas, and they're going to waste more money there than they will in Maine. But it counts. These little wins in Iowa, what we're looking for in Alaska, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, uh, what we're looking for from the former uh, governor of North Carolina. All of those bits and pieces. Will it result? If it results in a victory, it'll be narrow as hell. So whoever wins will be subject to the whims of the Fetterman types, who will allow themselves to be bought and sold back and forth. Rand Paul, I'm not suggesting Rand Paul is for sale, because I think that he is probably more morally upright than the vast majority of the men and women that he works with. He's a little bit. He is. How do you say? Rand Paul is. Hmm, there's a lot of variance with Rand Paul. He um, he is eclectic. He's eclectic. So again, we'll find that that's still 5 months away, but we need to get to the finish line, and then in order to kind of take the tally and see who won. And tonight, I presume, in a matter of minutes, I was trying to get some reliable NBC exit polling, but Maine is it's a small electorate, but it's a really big state. I've driven from stem to stern of Maine a number of times in my youth. Beautiful state. The coastline. We all probably know people that go there in the summer. It was interesting that the last time that a Republican carried the presidential ticket, the last time a Republican won for president in Maine was uh, George Herbert Walker Bush. Hmm? That was the one term following Reagan too, and he was not able to hold off against Bill Clinton. But of course, the Bush family, who were Texas oil men, also had a big compound at Kennebunkport, and that predated George Herbert Walker Bush, the father, Bush the elder, to his father, Prescott Bush, who was, if I recall, a senator maybe from Connecticut. There's a little bit of legacy going on in that family. You talk about. I joke about. Uh, isn't a joke. Donald Trump, and when will we know for certain that Don Jr. is in fact his heir apparent in the next presidential race? When Donald Trump, the father, casts Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance aside because they're not blood, and they can't be trusted. And and with all of the shady shit that's been going on, that's why he's trying to get an agreement where his sons and he and his businesses are immune from IRS audits and other civil liability going forward. Of course, that agreement is in place, but I'll still argue that it will not stand the scrutiny of a properly executed lawsuit, that it will fall apart eventually. And Todd Blanche will, he'll get confirmed or he won't. At this point, what is the amount of energy? You have to look at each fight in the Senate as as you have like a data center. You have a limited supply, and you can only budget so much of your monthly or annual supply of energy to each campaign, and you have money, and you have personnel and resources. Right? So, is the Todd Blanche fight going to be worth it? You would think, and I'll leave you with this, just on the Todd Blanche, the one issue. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell, big issue, ties him back to the Epstein files, which is being mishandled. In fact, the names of the victims are being leaked again to re victimize these women over and over again, with the only thing I can imagine is their goal is to scare them into silence. Right? That there are a number of extremely powerful men whose bank balance is north of what Donald Trump's is, that were involved in molesting underage women. And they want to keep that suppressed. And they feel that if they can ride out through Trump, keep everything quiet, then it would go away. But there are many states, including Florida, where sex trafficking, more broadly, there's no statute of limitations on that. So hopefully we will get each and every one of the old fucks that were responsible will be punished in a miserable and embarrassing way. So, but that's for another day. Graham Plattner, are we proud of ourselves for supporting somebody who has sometimes exhibited poor judgment? And the one compelling case that I've heard, coming up to the election, excuse me, is an argument that goes something like this: that the United States Senate is not the correct venue for working shit out. I might be paraphrasing, but the the sentiment that we want adults in the Senate. They're not behaving like it now. John Thune today, once again, still the most handsome coward in Washington, D.C. I thought about 3 weeks ago he was starting to round the corner. Nope. John Thune still undefeated champion, the most devastatingly handsome coward in Washington, D.C. Kind of craggy Dakota dude. It's like some cross between Redford and Paul Newman. Just kind of that rough, ready, what used to be the Marlboro Man of my youth. That was the in the cigarette ads. Yes, they used to have cigarette ads, and the Marlboro Man, the dude on the horseback, normally in a different kind of hat, and whatever you call lariat and a horse, and looking very manly, looking Tom Selleck. That was the epitome of the stunning apparition of manhood in the 70s and 60s. But now we have an equally handsome, almost embarrassingly handsome majority leader in the Senate, John Thune, and he can't do a fucking thing because he's a hostage to his fear about a game show host and a party of QAnon racist idiots. How's that? No big words there. Yeah, so when I again, the one whataboutism, he did, she did, he did, mommy, Sally did it, so why can't I? That kind of, the complete destruction appropriate for the Trump era, the destruction of intellectual honesty in debate is whataboutism. And the Hunter Biden and all of that. But are we falling into that with Graham Plattner and saying, yeah, but Donald Trump did 27 and three quarter times worse and continues to do so each and every day. So why can't we give a little extra grace to somebody who was a broken man after seeing combat with Donald Trump? You know, the only combat he saw was forcing the doctor at gunpoint to give him the military clearance to stay out of the army in the 70s or before, when he got out of he was riding uh, college deferrals initially, but then because he was due, his number was about to come up, and he was going to get shipped to Vietnam at the end of the adventure. They got the bone spur diagnosis, got him out of that, and then he was free as a buzzard after that. So, yeah. So, Mr. Plattner, are we celebrating your victory? We don't have to do that. We can hope, as I hope of myself, to be a better man. There's always time when you're vertical and not in a box. Then you have the opportunity to seek higher ground, to expect more of yourself. And perhaps Graham Plattner, after those very disturbing portions of his life that caused him to act out in a way that would not have made our mothers proud, maybe he will round out to be the most compelling senator in history in the United States. We don't know. It ain't John Thune. I know that for sure because I don't, and like I said, I don't know Plattner personally. I'd love to have the chance to meet him just to, you want to size somebody up and kind of get the vibe, what they're about. Maybe I'll venture to a Graham Plattner smoker, whatever they call it these days, in southern Maine, which is 20 28 and a half minutes that way. Um, and just go and sit there and listen to the man speak. And then maybe I'll get the chance to shake his hand. Maybe he'll show me the spot where the you know. Yeah. So thank you, and enjoyed the Knicks cast last night. Obviously, I didn't help the team, but I'm absolutely fucking certain that your president didn't help the team either, and the referees did not cover themselves in glory because, as I was posting about earlier today, the um, the free throw opportunities in the second half of the game were 3-1 Spurs to Knicks. Can't do that. Can't do that. Is it an Was it an anomaly, and it just happened that way? Right. The ghost of David Stern was flying around MSG last night, trying to stay away from Trump, and certainly trying to stay away from James fucking Dolan. And they dropped one. It wasn't. They didn't get their asses handed to them. They lost, and kind of like Hillary Clinton. And you lick your wounds and you get ready for the next game. And World Cup is knocking on our door. Thank you all very much. Please do the restack, retweet, everything. Enjoy your night and take care of your family. And we'll see you soon. Thanks.